Listen up, everyone. I want to start with a warning: beware of the quiet ones. Be wary of the women who choose their own presence over the world's constant noise. Why? Because solitude is pure power. A woman who makes time to be alone isn't just someone to fear. She is unstoppable, a force destined to make a profound mark on life itself. Let me tell you why. In a society obsessed with approval, constant communication, and noise, she isn't hunting for validation. She isn't waiting for a savior. She's not scared to look at herself in the mirror. Instead, she's quietly mastering her passion, her mind, and her fate. Doesn't that deserve respect? Today, I want you to truly see why a woman like this is a strength like no other. I want you to grasp the sheer power she holds, the calm she creates, and the influence she wields. If you believe spending time alone is a sign of weakness, allow me to prove you absolutely wrong. This message will permanently change how you view being alone. A woman who embraces solitude isn't lonely. She is actively empowering herself. The hours she spends in quiet reflection are not a retreat from the world, but a purposeful pause. A chance to watch, learn, and expand. Solitude is her safe harbor, not her prison. It is in this sacred, still place that she finds clarity, a clear-sightedness the world's commotion can never offer. This isn't just resting, it's a deliberate act of self-command. When a woman sits only with herself, she faces her thoughts, her worries, and her desires. There are no distractions, no fake fronts, just the raw, pure truth. And this truth becomes her most reliable helper. In a society that often pushes people to fear being by themselves, she has completely flipped the script. She understands that solitude is not isolation, but a chance to meet her genuine self. She doesn't run from silence, she invites it, knowing that in the stillness, she can hear the voice that matters most her own. In this stillness, she sharpens her ability to think clearly and act decisively. There is powerful strength in stepping back from the crowd, even for a short time, to check and reset yourself. Solitude gives her a high viewpoint to see her life from a wider perspective. Her decisions aren't rushed or swayed by outside pressure. Her choices are thoughtful, intentional, and fully aligned with her core values. She recognizes that true power comes from preparation, and her alone time is her training ground. But let's be absolutely clear, this is not about running away or avoiding things. It's about connection, not to others, but to herself. This deep self-connection allows her to recharge, mend, and nourish her spirit. She steps out of her solitude with a fresh sense of purpose and an unwavering inner strength. While the world rushes ahead in chaos, she stands still, anchored in her own truth, completely untouched by others' passing opinions. She knows the quality of her life depends not on how much she does, but on how mindfully she does it. Solitude also makes her focus sharp. Without the endless chatter of the world, she can zone in on her goals and dreams. She is not easily swayed by current fads or outside expectations because her direction is completely internal. Her vision is sharp, her path is set, and her steps are purposeful. She understands that real success isn't measured by how much you collect, but by how deeply you connect with your purpose. This alone time is also when she toughens her emotional shield. By working through her feelings in solitude, she learns to fully understand and manage them. She becomes the master of her feelings, not their slave. This deep emotional wisdom makes her tough, allowing her to face challenges with grace and strength. In her solitude, she realizes that she doesn't need anyone to make her complete, because she is already whole. This realization is freeing. She doesn't seek outside approval because she gives it to herself. Her value is not decided by her relationships, her achievements, or her possessions, but by the deep-seated certainty that comes from knowing who she is. This freedom allows her to see that she doesn't need anyone to complete herself. Solitude is not just a state of being, it's a powerful tool. It is here that she becomes the architect of her own destiny. A woman who masters being alone masters herself, and a woman who masters herself is a force absolutely no one can look past. A woman who spends time alone builds an unshakable confidence. This conviction doesn't come from applause or compliments. It comes from those quiet moments when she learns to trust herself. When she is alone, she becomes her own anchor, her own biggest fan, and her own source of strength. She doesn't need anyone to tell her she is enough. She knows it because she has taken the time to think, to grow, and to truly understand her worth. Confidence rooted in solitude is vastly different from the passing confidence that comes from outside praise. It's not tied to someone else's opinion or the changing winds of popularity. This kind of confidence is stable, like a deep, calm river flowing regardless of what happens on the surface. She doesn't need to prove herself to others because she has already proven it to the most important person in her life, herself. In a world where so many search for validation through social media or public praise, she steps away from the crowd and chooses to stand on her own. This simple act is an incredible declaration of self-assurance. It says, I am enough, even when no one is watching. That kind of belief is rare and powerful. It's unbreakable because it comes from within, forged in the quiet, when she has faced her fears, her doubts, and her dreams, and emerged even stronger. Her confidence also stems from knowing her value isn't dependent on outside circumstances. She understands that she is worthy, not because of her looks or achievements, but because of who she is at her heart. Alone time lets her connect with that center to remove the layers of social pressure and find the core of her real self. This self-awareness gives her the bravery to walk into any room and command her space, not with arrogance, but with a quiet, undeniable certainty. When she spends time alone, she also develops an inner voice that drowns out the world's noise. This voice is her guide, reminding her of her worth when the world tries to make her doubt it. She doesn't need to measure herself against anyone else because she is too focused on her own journey. She knows that comparison steals joy, and she refuses to let anything steal the peace and confidence she has carefully built in solitude. Her confidence isn't just about how she sees herself. It's about how she moves through the world. It's in the way she speaks, the way she holds herself, and the way she responds to life's challenges. She doesn't fall apart under pressure because she has spent time strengthening her base. She doesn't let setbacks define her because she knows they are simply steps on her path. This confidence is magnetic. People are drawn to her, not because she wants their approval, but because her self-assurance inspires them. She shows others what's possible when you take the time to truly know and trust yourself. Her confidence is a reflection of her solitude, and her solitude is the source of her strength. A woman who spends time alone develops an exceptional level of emotional intelligence. By stepping away from the world's distractions, she gains the clarity needed to explore and understand her own inner world of feelings. In solitude, she sits with her emotions, not avoiding them, not pushing them down, but facing them directly. This introspection lets her figure out the why behind her feelings, to understand what triggers her, and to handle her reactions with intention. She doesn't just feel, she learns to analyze and grow from those feelings, turning moments of exposure into chances for self-discovery. The time she spends alone teaches her to know the difference between what she should carry and what belongs to others. When feelings pop up, she doesn't instantly react or blame, she reflects. Is this frustration rooted in my own unmet hopes? Or is it the burden of someone else's energy? Solitude gives her the space to answer these questions with total honesty. As a result, she becomes not only aware of her feelings, but also highly skilled at managing them. This ability to process her emotions alone makes her incredibly tough. She doesn't depend on others to validate her feelings or fix her problems. She has built a set of tools during her alone time, not, but because there is an undeniable energy that comes from someone who is completely and profoundly themselves. In the end, a woman who spends time alone is a woman who truly knows herself. She is not afraid of her own reflection because she has learned to love and accept every part of it. Her authenticity is not a mask she wears, it is the truth she lives. She doesn't need to prove anything to anyone because she already knows her worth, and this genuine, unashamed self-expression is the foundation of her power. A power that others recognize and respect. Let me leave you with this final thought. A woman who spends time alone isn't hiding, she is building. She is building her strength, her future, and a legacy that doesn't need approval to be remembered. So, if you ever meet a woman who values her own company, do not pity her. Do not underestimate her. Understand this, she's not just dangerous, she is the true meaning of power. Now I ask you, will you dare to embrace your solitude and unlock that same strength? Thank you. Of being lonely, nor does she accept toxic behavior. She values quality over quantity, and her relationships show that. The time she spends understanding herself allows her to recognize what she needs and deserves from others. She enters relationships as a complete, happy person, not looking for someone to complete her, but rather someone to enhance her life's journey. Her emotional wisdom also gives her the courage to speak authentically. She shares her feelings with clarity and respect, unafraid of being vulnerable, because she knows it's a strength, not a weakness. She can handle hard conversations, resolve disagreements, and build deeper bonds because she understands that emotional intelligence is as much about listening as it is about speaking. Through her time alone, she learns to master her feelings, not to hide or ignore them, but to use their power for growth and connection. A woman with this level of emotional intelligence is a force to be reckoned with, one who understands not only herself, but the world around her. A woman who spends time alone develops a strength that is unmatched, a strength rooted in self-reliance and toughness. By choosing solitude, she faces life on her own terms, learning to rely on herself in ways most people never dare to. This self-reliance is not about pushing the world away. Instead, it's about building a base so strong that no outside force can knock her down. She becomes her own support, her own defender, and her own guide, proving that she is fully able to stand tall even when the fierce winds of life blow against her. In solitude, she finds the power of self-sufficiency. She learns that she can solve problems without waiting for someone else to give her the answers. When challenges come up, she doesn't panic or depend on others to save her. Instead, she taps into her own ingenuity. Spending time alone allows her to think clearly and approach difficulties with a focused mind. She doesn't see setbacks as impossible, she sees them as puzzles to be solved. This way of thinking transforms her into someone who can thrive when things go wrong. She becomes a pillar of strength, not just for herself, but often for everyone around her. Her self-reliance extends to how she handles her feelings and needs. She understands that her happiness is her responsibility, not something to be handed over or borrowed from others. When she feels joy, she owns it. When she faces pain, she works through it. She doesn't rely on others to fill her emotional holes because she has already done the work to heal, grow, and find peace within herself. This completeness is not forced, it is a choice to take control of her own story and fate. A woman who flourishes in her own company also develops an unshakable resilience. She knows what it feels like to face silence, to wrestle with her thoughts, and to come out stronger because of it. Solitude has taught her that she can survive difficult times, not because someone held her hand through them, but because she held her own. She has learned to weather storms, to rebuild when things fall apart, and to keep moving even when the road isn't clear. This toughness makes her unstoppable. Life may throw obstacles her way, but she faces them with a quiet determination, knowing that she has already overcome so much on her own. Her independence also allows her to live authentically. She doesn't make choices based on what others expect or demand of her. Instead, she follows her own values, dreams, and instincts. She doesn't fear being different or going against the grain because she isn't dependent on others' approval. She values her freedom and refuses to change who she is to fit into molds that aren't true to her. This authenticity is her greatest strength, a guiding light that inspires those who watch her live life with such conviction. A woman who spends time alone builds a kind of strength that can't be faked or borrowed. It is a strength that comes from knowing herself, trusting herself, and standing firm against life's uncertainties. She is living proof of the power of independence and resilience, a woman who needs no permission to be powerful and no validation to be extraordinary. A woman who spends time alone develops an authenticity that is both rare and captivating. In a world where people often hide or pretend to fit in, she stands out because she absolutely refuses to fake it. Her time alone gives her the space to peel back the layers of social pressures, allowing her to reconnect with the pure core of who she is. She learns to accept her oddities, her imperfections, her strengths, and her vulnerabilities without apology. This authenticity becomes her biggest advantage. It radiates from her, drawing people in, not because she is looking for approval, but because she is simply totally herself. In solitude, she is free from the judgments of others. There is no one there to tell her how to act, what to wear, or what to think. In this private space, she can explore every part of herself, from the gentle and caring sides to the bold and fierce ones. She can be soft and strong, quiet and loud, all without the fear of being rejected or misunderstood. This freedom allows her to match her inner world with how she shows up on the outside. What you see is what you get, and that is exactly the way she wants it. There is no difference between who she is and how she appears in the world. Her authenticity isn't just about accepting herself, it's about how she presents herself. When she speaks, it comes from the heart. When she acts, it is in line with her true values. She does not bend herself out of shape to fit into spaces that weren't made for her. Instead, she cuts her own path, guided by her truth and driven by her purpose. This genuine expression of self is magnetic because it is so uncommon. In a world full of people trying to be what they think others want, a woman who is simply and unapologetically herself stands out as a symbol of honesty and character. Spending time alone also helps her lose the fear of being judged. Many people hide parts of themselves because they are afraid of what others might think, but a woman who embraces solitude has already made peace with her own worth. She doesn't look for validation from the outside world because she has already approved of herself. Her confidence doesn't come from fitting into a mold or meeting someone else's hopes. It comes from the deep certainty that she is enough just as she is. She doesn't need to justify her life, her choices, or her way of living to anyone. She is the author of her own story, and she writes it without apology. This authenticity also gives her the courage to speak her truth, even when it's uncomfortable. She is not afraid to stand alone in her beliefs or values because she knows that her voice matters. When she enters a room, her presence is felt, not because she demands attention, but because she commands respect. People are drawn to her, not because she is acting or trying to be something she's not. Writing, quiet thought, self-coaching that empower her to handle life's difficulties with calm and dignity. When faced with trouble, she doesn't break down because she has already done the hard work of understanding herself. She knows her limits and her strengths, and she approaches every situation with wisdom born from self-awareness. Emotional intelligence also makes her highly aware of the people around her. By understanding her own feelings, she gains a deeper sense of others. She knows what it feels like to be hurt, anxious, or joyful, and this empathy lets her connect with people on a powerful level. Yet, she doesn't let this empathy overwhelm her. Alone time has taught her to set boundaries, not as walls, but as protective limits that ensure her well-being. This self-awareness carries over into her relationships. A woman who spends time alone is deliberate about who she keeps in her life. She doesn't cling to people out of fear